10 biggest mistakes tourists make in London. Anyone visiting a foreign country for the first time will pretty much encounter situations he never envisaged. No matter the level of preparation or orientation your agent has taken you through, you may initially feel like a misfit and make some of those mistakes made by tourists. First-time visitors to London do make some serious mistakes that hamper the enjoyment of their tours. This video discusses the 10 biggest mistakes tourists make in London. Notice those unsaid rules being flouted and see how many of those tourists go wrong. Even those who have been to London before will be surprised to learn that they've missed a lot of things because of making these biggest mistakes that tourists make in London. 1. Paying too much for a hotel room. It's an open secret that London can be expensive. With proper planning, however, you don't have to make the mistake that will hurt your wallet. There are lovely rooms everywhere that will cost you just a small fortune if you expand your search. Of course, you're not prevented from flouting your affluence in an elegant central London hotel. Even modest hotel rooms can cost a lot. But if you want to reduce the cost, you'd have to get cheaper options. You can get bright and airy private ensuite rooms for a quite affordable price. You can even rent a flat. One of the biggest mistakes tourists make while visiting London is that they don't search deep enough and end up paying too much for hotels when there are cheaper hostels that are also more central. 2. Not taking advantage of the deals. You could save a lot by checking to see if there are deals you could take advantage of before you book museum entry and theatre tickets. Entrance to many museums, some local attractions and other sites is free for the benefit of all. Visiting these alone can be an excellent way to learn more about London and get yourself immersed in the history and culture of the city. You don't have to be spending a fortune all the time at paid attractions. Did you know that at certain times of the year, a lot of the city's tourist attractions do package deals? Even in places where visitors have to pay, one of the biggest mistakes they make is that their entry fees cover much more than what they see if they ask for more. 3. Eating at the tourist traps. One of the serious errors that tourists commit while visiting London is visiting and eating at the tourist traps. What's the point of tourists eating and drinking at places they could have eaten back home? Maybe they've adopted the misconception that London's food scene is terrible. You'd believe this only if you've gone to the wrong places. However, you could enjoy something new and different in rich British food scenes. You don't have to limit yourself to only fish and chips all the time. London has a wide array of exciting cuisine. I don't want to mention places now, but by all means avoid eating in those big chains and the terrible tourist traps. If you search well enough, you'll discover London's local haunts and those tastiest eateries that most tourists don't bother searching for. 4. Tipping too much. One of the 10 biggest mistakes tourists make in London is over-tipping. This is common among visitors from the US or Canada who are used to tipping here, there and everywhere for each service they already paid for. Yes, it's never bad to tip. It's a beautiful practice. However, you have to be conscious of the fact that the tipping culture varies from country to country. In the UK, tipping isn't done the way it is in the US. Most restaurants in London usually add a 12.5% service charge to your bill as a form of a tip to whoever attended to you. You therefore don't have to pay up or even consider adding extra. But if you eat in a sit-down restaurant where nothing is added to your bill, tipping 10 to 15% is not a bad idea. 5. Paying for each single tube journey. Another big mistake that tourists make during their tour of London is paying for individual tickets for every tube ride they're making. This isn't a very bright idea. Tourists can save themselves a great deal of money by getting an Oyster card for their time in London. Apart from being cheaper, it's also more convenient. Consider the time you'll spend queuing up each time you need to get a ticket for each trip, and you're likely going to be hopping on and off the tube multiple times every day. You also don't need to buy daily travel passes that you might not make the most of or single journey tickets that shoot your budget way up. It also saves your time. You can conveniently get an Oyster card at any of the tube or transport stations. 6. Standing on the wrong side of the escalators. Many tourists who are not familiar with the use of escalators, especially when using the London Underground, find themselves at the wrong side of the escalators. Hardly would you find anything Londoners hate more than seeing tourists standing on the left side. You may be screamed upon or even possibly sworn at. Remember the rule: the right side is for standing while the left side is for those who want to walk down. Don't see it as a fast lane when you're in a haste, and whenever you're on an escalator, keep both yourself and your baggage on the right. 7. Exploring only central London. If you want to experience a culture of a place, as they say, you must look beyond its famous spots. Don't get stuck to Camden, Leicester Square, Trafalgar Square, Westminster, Oxford Street and Piccadilly Circus. Central London and fave spots are not all there is to London. Try spending a day exploring other areas that'll make you blend in like a true Londoner. For instance, you'll feel less like a tourist while hanging out with the people who are really living in areas such as Hackney and Hampstead, with cool things to see and do in rural settings to make you feel at home in the afternoon. Can you try going up the Northern Line to Camden or heading west over to Richmond? You have a lot to gain if you don't stay too much in central London. 8. Taking the tube during rush hour. This is another one of the biggest mistakes tourists make in London. They take the tube during the rush hour. It's this error that accounts for most of the negative reviews London gets on transportation and moving about. Be honest with yourself. Why would you want to be taking the tube at rush hour when Londoners are hurrying to and from work? Are you not there on a vacation? The moment you step onto a tube platform, your mistake will stare you in the face as you're crammed in a crowd of angry and sweaty commuters. If you really want to enjoy your trip, at all costs avoid the tube between 7:30 and 9:30 am and 5 to 7 pm. If you must be on heading underground in those hours, please don't blame anyone for your experience. 9. Not checking the weather daily. The weather in London can be really fickle, highly unpredictable. It can be raining and cold at this moment, and the next moment it is warm. Many tourists, especially first-timers, have failed to make the best of their visit to London because of making the mistake of not checking the weather before venturing out. Even though you know how it feels, you may still get caught unawares by this instability of weather. 10. Not carrying an adapter. This is one of the biggest mistakes tourists make in London. No, I should say while visiting London. And it has been very disastrous. The travel code you must follow is carry an adapter with you on your way to London. Many who attempt to charge or power their gadgets have painfully burned them off. It is going to be a serious error of omission to have all of your essentials inside carry-on luggage only to find out that your power adapter is not there. You definitely need a 100 to 240 volt adapter in London. The standard voltage there is 220 volts. In fact, most American appliances such as hairdryer uses a 120 volt. Therefore you need not only an adapter but also a converter to be on the safe side. These are the 10 commonest and biggest mistakes tourists make while visiting London. Bear them in mind when next you visit so that you don't get caught short in transport faux pas, spending too much and miss out on freebies. I know there are other mistakes marring tours to London. Please share your experience with us in the comments section below. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day. This is Learning Canteen.